Oregon has now added 4 transfers via the portal. They will add more. Will it get to 10? I don't know. I think 8 is probably the baseline number, but they've added an offensive tackle. They have added a corner, a safety, and a tight end. I suspect linebacker is among the position groups that could benefit from having a veteran presence in there, or at least an experienced presence. And I talked about one transfer from the Evergreen State, that's Washington, of course, that could fit with the Ducks. That was Kamori House. Here's another name to keep in mind. Washington State transfer linebacker Tariq. He goes by Buddah Al-Uqdah. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologize if not. Let's just call him Buddah for short. So Buddah led Washington State in tackles this year. He is one of 22 Cougars to hit the transfer portal. And I do want to say what is happening to Washington State right now is what happened to Oregon State last offseason. Coach leaves, players leave, and you look at 2025 and go, oh, it's going to be rough, isn't it? Yeah, it could be rough. Really, really rough. And look, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and Washington State, unfortunately, is wearing milk-bone underwear. That is a line from Cheers. I did not come up with that on my own. It is one of my favorites from the great Norm Peterson, of course. So, one of the greatest sitcom characters ever. Norm and Cliff, phenomenal. Anyway, I'm sure many of you out there watch Cheers. I've seen every episode. I absolutely love that show. And unfortunately, it's not a kind time to be up there at Washington State. Makes me appreciative of Oregon. And the commitments that Oregon has made over the last 15 years that have gotten them into the Big Ten and staying at the big kids table in college football. Because I see other schools in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon State, Washington State, it's tough. It is really hard to be a Coug fan right now. It's really hard to be a Beaver fan right now. It is hard to love college football. It's not just hard to root for your team and watch your team. It's hard to be a college football fan, and that stinks. Now, Oregon could absolutely benefit from it because linebacker is one of the position groups that I look at right now for the Ducks and say a transfer makes sense. It would absolutely, positively make some sense because, yes, you're going to have Devin Jackson back, or at least that's what I anticipate, but you're losing Bossa, you're losing Jacobs, you're losing Betcher. And maybe one of the freshmen from the last couple of cycles who are either a true freshman or redshirt freshmen right now, guys like Kamar Mathudi or Braden Platt, maybe they're ready. Maybe Jerry Mixon's ready. He'll be going into his 3rd season next year. That's when Devin Jackson, really started to pop. I mean, Jackson played a decent amount last year, but he played a lot more and has been a much better player this season for Oregon. I think he's one of the best linebackers Oregon has next year. Still, they played 4. You think Lanning and Lupoy and everyone are going to go with, and Coach Michalowski, the linebackers coach, you think they're going to run with 3 new guys that didn't see the field in any significant way and say, okay, you're our top linebackers now. I could see him doing it with 2. I don't know about 3. So that's why linebacker could make a lot of sense. And this is a guy who led Washington State in tackles, was just wildly productive all over the place. He had a couple interceptions. He had 5 quarterback hurries. Like he's just an instant impact, plug and play sort of guy. And there have been a lot of good players to come out of Pullman in the last several years. Their quarterback, John Mateer, is off to Oklahoma. That's the only transfer quarterback, by the way, I would have been okay with Oregon going to get rather than rolling with either Dante Moore or Austin Novosad. So that question came in from Bud. By the way, Locked On Ducks Insider. Are there any Washington State players that make sense? He's the guy. He is the guy that would make the most sense to me. I haven't seen anyone else. Our old friend Chris Hudson is going down to Arizona. I don't think that's a wide receiver avenue Oregon would have gone down. I'm 50-50 on whether Oregon should add a transfer wide receiver. It really depends on what Evan Stewart does. If he leaves, okay, maybe bring in a veteran to be a headliner in that wide receiver room and an experienced presence. But there's just so much talent there. Jurion Dickey, Kyler Casper, it won't be their first go-rounds in college football. Might be their first go-rounds as impact guys. You've got Justice Lowe in there as well. You've got Jeremiah McClellan. You've got DeCorian Moore coming in. I mean, it's a lot of guys. It's a lot of guys at wide receiver. I'd say the priority to add a transfer linebacker is higher than that of a wide receiver. So certainly Buddah, as we'll refer to him, could make some sense here for the Ducks. I wanted to touch on the All-American selections Oregon's had. It's never a small thing to me because growing up, Oregon didn't have a whole lot of All-American selections. It was still a rarity. It's still a really hard threshold to get to. But, for Oregon to have 3 selections and 2 of them to be linemen, 1 offensive, 1 defensive, I think is telling about where the Oregon football program is at right now, because that didn't feel how it used to, right? The All-Americans were a Michael James or Marcus Mariota type, or DeAnthony Thomas as a specialist most often. And sure, you had a Defoe or an Eric Armstead pop up, but it feels like you're going to continue to see these sorts of guys earn this sort of recognition. And when I say these sorts of guys, I mean linemen more often than you used to. So that's just a quick evolution of the Oregon football program that I've been encouraged to see. So Oregon didn't have any first-team All-American guys, but Derek Harmon makes the second team. He's probably gone to the NFL. I would love for him to come back so very much, but Derek Harmon's probably gone to the NFL. Dillon Gabriel made the third team, and Josh Conerly made the third team. Now, that may not seem like a ton. Well, a third-team All-American. It's a hard list to crack, man. It is a hard. There are a lot of great football players out there. And I saw some chatter on Twitter amongst Oregon fans about Dillon Gabriel being a third-team All-American. He's behind Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. You don't have to like Shedeur Sanders. I got news for you. He's a really good football player. And he is dealing with a whole heck of a lot less at Colorado. Their offensive line still stinks. Their defense improved dramatically, but their O-line still stinks. He's got a bunch of good receivers, and he's got no running game, and he puts up crazy good numbers. And Cam Ward was the number 2 passer in all of college football this year. So if you look at Dillon Gabriel on the third team and say, wow, he's a Heisman finalist, and he's a third-team All-American, and he's in the college football playoff and Big Ten champion and all this stuff, the numbers just don't compare. Like I think it's great for Gabriel to get this recognition and whatnot, but I loved what he said in a press conference the other day about individual awards. Being a Heisman finalist and not winning, of course, because Travis Hunter got the award, which he was always going to get, and Gabriel was asked about it, and with that same, he's got such an aura about him that is just calm, cool, collected, which is how he plays on the field. The Iceman out there. Like he's just ice cold all the time in the best way, and I'm here for it. But he was asked about that, and he gave a great quote that essentially boiled down to, look, I'm not here for individual awards, or I'd be playing a sport like tennis or golf. I'm here to play football and get team awards and win games. And you know what? That's all I want to hear from my quarterback. Colin Cowherd has this famous take. I want my quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. Well, Dillon Gabriel fits that particular mold. He is not an I guy. He's a we guy. And both sorts of guys can succeed. But I like having an ultimate we guy in there. And he is certainly that. So Conerly and Gabriel, third-team All-American, very well-deserved. Derek Harmon, second-team All-American, incredibly well-deserved. I think if Birch had been healthy all season, he would have snuck onto the third team. That's just my guess. But missing games caused him to not have the maximum amount of stats he could. But still, nice to see Oregon players getting the recognition they deserve. I was a little surprised Tez Johnson wasn't in there. But again, missing a couple games probably cut down his numbers from getting into that particular position. So Oregon players getting the love that they have worked so hard to earn. I'm here for it.